We are just 2 days away from the workouts getting underway at the NFL Combine. And with that, we bring in our larger-than-life NFL draft analyst here, Matt Miller, to take us through some of the storylines. What's buzzing right now, Matt?
The big one, Hannah, who is the QB2 going to be in this class? We talked earlier in the show, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado not working out of the Combine. It's an open race at this number 2 spot. I know folks have thought all year it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I'm telling you, NFL teams see this differently. Players like Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, Tyler Shuck from Louisville, even Quinn Ewers from Texas are still very much in the mix. And with good workouts this week, with good interviews, and with good medical checks, each of them can make up ground in this quarterback race that is still very much wide open. Now, we're used to the receiver class dominating NFL drafts. That is not the case this year. If you take Travis Hunter from Colorado out of the equation, and he's listed as a cornerback this week at the Combine, take him out of the mix, and there's a lot of receivers that are back half of round 1 type players. Luther Burden from Missouri, Matthew Golden from Texas, Ted McMillan from Arizona, and Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State are all in the mix as round 1 players, but none are locks to be drafted in the top 15. Now, one position that is great this year is the running back position. It's in vogue now with Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry reigniting offenses in the NFL. We could see 2 to 3 backs drafted in the first round. We could see 30 running backs drafted overall. That would be tied for the most since the draft was shrunk to 7 rounds back in 2017. Guys like Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey coming up the board early to make that such a great group. So if you need a running back this year, hint, hint, Dallas Cowboys, this is your year to get one because there are starters in rounds 1, 2, 3, and even into day 3, we're going to see a lot of starting caliber running backs come off the board this year.
Be interesting to see if Genty is on the board still when the Cowboys have that first round pick, what they do. Amina, do you think we'll see a lot of running backs jumping up draft boards?
I do. A lot of that has to do with the caliber of the backs. Matt highlighted some of them. I'll also throw in Dylan Sampson in Tennessee as a gap scheme back whose tape I was really impressed by. But man, there's a lot of really good backs. And I think what we've saw this year with Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, is that if you have an offense where there's already a system that's conducive to rushing success between the offensive line, maybe the play calling, the scheme, you got a dual threat quarterback like they got in Baltimore, dropping a great back into that system can turbocharge it. Now, the problem is there aren't many teams like that, like Philadelphia, Baltimore, Green Bay, where they were ready for that back. But there's a few. I would point to Denver as one, for example. And I think because of that and because of the lack of free agents and the caliber of last year, a lot of those teams are going to look to the draft and think, well, maybe we should value this position high if we already have a good offensive line.
Yeah, and I don't know if there are going to be a lot of running backs that shoot up draft boards, but I believe there are going to be a lot of running backs that come off of the draft board. Mina highlighted, right? If you have that transcendent back, that Derrick Henry or that Saquon Barkley, they can take your team from extremely good offensively to excellent to great to game-changing. But also think about some of the guys who fit in later round draft picks. Look at a Chase Brown and what he became late in the year for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know no one watched the Giants down the stretch, but their young rookie Tracy began to make plays, and he showed promise as to what he could be in the future. And then you do have those guys like the Josh Jacobs, though a tier below a Saquon Barkley or a Derrick Henry, when fitting into an offense like he was in Green Bay, he actually became the personality, right, the priority of that offense. And so I think that the running back position is going to be back. Maybe not back to where we're going to jump into the top 5, top 10 to get one. But if you have a guy you like and you have an infrastructure around him that will allow him to succeed, I believe understanding that the run game is different now and a difference maker will be on many of the minds of these evaluators throughout this process.
No, absolutely. And Mina mentioned that. I think Denver's an interesting team. I think the LA Chargers are another interesting team. You have the quarterback in Justin Herbert. You have the offensive lineman with Slater, and you have Joe Alt, who was so great as a rookie. And you could look at the board and say, okay, well, they need a receiver. They maybe need an edge rusher. But best player available for a lot of these teams in that same group in the late teens,
Yeah.
early 20s, I think is going to be running back. So it's going to be interesting for sure to see how this plays out. But it reminds me of 2023. Bijan Robinson went really, really early. We knew how great he was. And then Jahmyr Gibbs kind of snuck in the middle of round one. And a lot of folks, myself included, like, what is Detroit doing? Taking a running back in the middle of round one. They already have all these guys. That could happen again this year with a player like Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, who should have a great week of the combine. He could be that guy. If we see Genty going to the top 10, I wouldn't be shocked if some of those teams, late teens, early 20s, get in on Hampton and we see another running back slide into the first round.
I'm so glad you mentioned Detroit, though, Matt, because I think, like, when we go back and revisit that draft pick, they're the perfect example of what we're talking about. They already had the offensive line, so adding that special back, and Gibbs was a special back, was once again like, adding horsepower to a car or something. And I think for these teams, it's as much about self-scouting as it is about scouting these prospects, like in Denver. Is your offensive line ready? Chargers, I would have some hesitation if they're not addressing the interior of the offensive line first, for example, before adding it back. But I think for teams that do have good run-blocking offensive lines like Detroit, and that was a really, really great example from that year, adding a great back makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and we had those huge names available in free agency last year. This free agent running back class is not of that caliber. All right, coming up, we're going to
How's it going, everybody? Villa Sports Network here. Just want to thank you guys for your support on the channel. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Also want to kind of remind you to don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment on the video if you like as well. But regardless of the fact, thank you again for your support, and hope to see you on the next video.